Database lock in clinical trials. Introduction. Now here is a stepwise process of database lock (DBL) in clinical trials, followed by its importance, purpose and a summary of pros and cons. So what I'm going to discuss here is the importance. We will discuss the importance, then we will discuss the purpose and the summary of positive and negative cases of DBL, right? So generally the database lock we call as DBL in clinical trials. Step 1. Last subject, last visit. Now whenever the last patient completes their scheduled study visit, it triggers the start of final data cleaning activities. So this is very important. LSLV is a terminology which is called as last subject, last visit, and the moment this is entered in the database, it triggers the final data cleaning activity. So this is the first step in any clinical trial and in any therapeutic area. Step 2. Data cleaning and reconciliation. All subject data are reviewed for accuracy, completeness and consistency. Includes resolution of data queries, serious adverse events, lab data, ECG, imaging and other external vendor data reconciliation. Now the next step is to clean the final data once the last subject and last visit has been entered in the clinical database. Now all the subjects data, it has to be accurate, it has to be complete and there has to be a consistency in the data. Now you should also include any kind of resolution which missing cases or whether there is any inconsistent data or there are any SAE, serious adverse events, you need to reconcile, and also if there are any death events that has occurred in that specific clinical trial or in any therapeutic area, it needs to be informed to the concerned ethics committee that this particular subject has died due to so and so reason within 24 hours. So all these procedures needs to be completed. The lab data, ECG, imaging and any other external vendor data. Now the external vendor data is nothing but your LB. Now LB is a domain where it has the central data and you also get from the local vendor data, right? So if you have two different vendors, then it becomes very essential to maintain its consistency, right? So all these data cleaning process is a step 2 in the database lock. Step 3. Medical coding review. Adverse events, concomitant medications or prior medical history or post medical history. Now all these terms and all these terminologies, this needs to be coded using the MEDRA, right, and the WHO dictionary. Also you should mention its version. It's very essential that you mention the version of the MEDRA coding that you are using in this specific clinical trial for any therapeutic area, right? So your adverse events, is there, medical coding needs to be done with MEDRA, then your concomitant medication needs to be coded with WHO drug, then your medical history which is there, it could be either prior or post. Now all these domains needs to be medically coded and it needs to be reviewed. It is not only that the coding is completed, your work is done. No, it has to be reviewed again by the another coder so that there is any discrepancies that can be resolved. This is a very important step. Now understand one thing is, if you have any adverse events term or if you have any concomitant medications term or if you have any medical history terms which is not coded, right, the system organ class or the preferred term or the therapeutic area level 1 or the therapeutic area level 2, so if those terms are not added or if their values are blank, now when that data sets, SJTM data sets or the ADAM data sets, when it goes under the Pinnacle 21 software for its validation, it will throw you an error saying that the medical coding is missing for so and so records. So it becomes very essential to ensure that the medical coding needs to be done for each and every adverse event term, for each and every concomitant medication term and for each and every medical history term. Not a single record should be missing without coding. Step 4. Final quality control QC checks. Now there needs to be mentioned that the internal reviews are done, the checks are validated, and the automated validation checks are conducted, right? So the internal quality process should be there. A team will be hired to ensure that each and every step is reviewed and checked. Now listings and discrepancy reports are reviewed by the data management and statisticians. Now, so if, for example, if you have worked in any clinical trial study, before the time of the database log or during the time of the database log, your team will tell you to provide the patient listings profile, right? Now, why do they tell you to generate the patient profile listings? To ensure that there are no discrepancies and it needs to be reviewed. That is the reason the patient listings profiles are generated, to give to the clinical data managers and statisticians, so that they review each and every record properly, and if there are any discrepancies they can raise to the concerned sites before the DBL. Now here going forward I will be referring database log as DBL. So if a SAS programmer is told to do the patient profile listing, you should understand that we are near to its database log, and then it needs to be reviewed by the biostatisticians or statistician. This is a very important and vital role for a QC to ensure that each and every record, each and every cell or each and every point of data is checked properly and validated. Step 5. Database log meeting. Now in this meeting, each and every representative or a person from the team should be present, from data management, biostatistics, clinical, medical or regulatory, right? It is very essential because these are the stakeholders who are handling a specific clinical trial and they are about to log the database. So that meeting is very important and it is very essential so that everybody attends the meeting, right? So everybody has to attend the meeting. Now also there should be an agreement to log the database is confirmed. It is very essential to have the agreement. The reason is to maintain the documentation so that everything is in bits and pieces and everybody is under the transparency environment, so that everybody knows that DBL is happening. Step 6. Formal database log. The clinical data management system CDMS is locked, right? Making the data read only. No further changes can be done unless a formal unlock process is approved. So even if you want to unlock the DBL which has already been locked, the reason should be valid and it should be ethically approved by all the stakeholders. You cannot just unlock it just because the owner of the organization or the sponsor has told you verbally to unlock it. Do not fall under such trap and do not fall under such misunderstandings, because any information communicated to you verbally, if you do such process, you will be responsible for its action. So always mention that you always maintain the documentation and follow the proper process of transparency in and integrity in the organization. Once the DBL is locked, you cannot unlock it unless and until that you have received the approval from all the stakeholders, unless and until you have got the valid reasons and the rational reasons for unlocking it. Step 7. Post-lock activities. Now once the database is locked, the statistical analysis is conducted, the table listings and figures are generated, and the clinical study report preparation begins. Now all these three things are done parallelly by a SAS programmer. It could be either SP or PSP, whatever that role of that SAS programmer is, right? So it becomes very essential that all these activities are conducted after DBL, and these are all the final analysis, because the DBL is not going to get changed. It's going to remain fixed and stable. Hence, all these analyses are final related versions which are being generated by the statistical programmers. Why is database lock important? It is important because it ensures data integrity, confirms that all data is clean, accurate and complete before doing the analysis. It needs to follow the regulatory compliance critical for regulatory submission, for example, FDA and EMA submission. Analysis readiness enables consistent and reproducible statistical analysis. Audit trail closure logs the audit trail for traceability and GCP compliant. So it is becomes very essential that the traceability of data is done and there is an audit trail mentioned for the DBL so that the data is clean, complete and accurate. Now, why it is implemented? It is implemented to create a frozen snapshot of the final clinical trial data to prevent the post hoc data manipulation, ensuring scientific and ethical credibility, to align teams across data management, biostatistics and medical writing for analysis and reporting. Now, it is very essential to implement this DPL because if you do not do this, you can imagine what all things can happen. Some team members, they can manipulate the data, they can release the wrong results, and once the results are released wrong and it launches the into the market the medicine or the drug, you can imagine how dangerous it could be to the human life. So when we are dealing with humans clinical trial data, it becomes responsibility for each and every member whosoever is working in the pharmaceutical industry, especially in the clinical trials, to ensure that you are dealing with the clinical trial data. Okay, so which is related to human lives. So it is becomes very essential that if anybody is doing data manipulation, you raise your voice and do not allow to happen. That is why this DBL is implemented, so that nobody can make any changes into the database once database is clean, accurate and complete, right? And all the teams from various departments dealing with data management, biostatistics, medical writing, monitoring team or QC team or everything, everybody has to sit together. There has to be transparency and they have to collaborate and coordinate with each other for analysis and reporting and for its quality check. Pros and cons of database log. Now here is a table listing out the pros and cons of DBL. So it ensures the data is clean and complete and reliable. It protects the data integrity and compliance, standard practice for regulatory submissions and prevents any unauthorized data changes. So it is very essential that the data is clean, complete and reliable. The data integrity is followed and the standard practice of regulatory is followed and there are no unauthorized changes. So that these are the plus points. The data is clean, complete and reliable. Next is cons. Any error post lock needs a formal unlock process. So it's not like just somebody told you or the owner of the company is telling you verbally, can you just go and unlock the DBL or the database? No, you cannot do that. Whosoever is, no matter even if the sponsor or the CEO of the organization is coming and telling you verbally to unlock it, you should not do it and you should not fall under that trap situation in any industry or in any firm, because everything you have to document it. And even if somebody is telling you to unlock the database, there is a specific process in every organization. You have a form that you need to unlock it, and then even if it is approved by all the stakeholders, the rational reason for unlocking has to be very clear and everybody has to align to it, right? Then can delay analysis if pre-lock checks are incomplete. So say for example, there is a deputy manager or some person who is sitting at the data manager position. That person has not done the pre-checks properly, right? So what can happen? The impact of that can delay the analysis and the statistical analysis. People, like say for example the statistical programmers, they have to redo everything, all the work. So those things should be avoided. Now multiple parties and timelines must be assigned. So these are all these situations that timelines should be assigned and they should be aligned. Now it's a time consuming and resource intensive. Now what happens here is the DBL is anyways, it's a time consuming process and it's also a resource intensive because there are major stakeholders involved into it. All departments agreement, all departments approval is needed. Hence, it's a time consuming and resource intensive, because that file goes from one table to another, from one department to another department for getting approval, and hence it becomes a little bit of time consuming process. Now, this is a specific flowchart which I have tried to develop here for the process of DBL in clinical trials. So the first step is last subject, last visit, right? Then we will follow the data cleaning and reconciliation. Next thing is the medical coding review. Next thing is your final QC checks. Next step is your database lock meeting. Next we will do the formal database lock, and then the post lock activities. Now all these importance of doing this DBL, it ensures data integrity, regulatory compliance, analysis readiness, and audit trail closure. Please like, share and subscribe. Leave a feedback comment mentioning any topic that you want me to make a video. Looking forward for a positive response. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Leave a feedback comment. Many thanks for your support and having great connection.